why don't we go through Jericho, and we can look at your character as if we're developing an NPC. I mean, it'll be a PC to you, but let's use a similar process, right? Where we're looking at things like your mannerisms and interactions. Now, we don't need to go to the DMG for that. Step number one with why did you pick faction agent? Now, because this is going to be for D&D time, I am presuming that, Emerald Enclave, Lord's Alliance, those aren't coming over from Faerun. So, step one in choosing the background overall. Why did you choose faction agent as the background for your character? Let's take a look. Insight and one intelligence, wisdom, or charisma of your choice. 2 languages, equipment, badge or emblem of your faction, copy of a seminal faction text, set of common clothes, and okay. So it seems very, very open. I like the idea of him being from a network of bounty hunters. Something like that can work. I'll tell you, even in the PHB, there is a bounty hunting option for you. I'm not saying that to discourage you, or I don't want to say that this is a bad background. If you want to set it up as a formal organization, beyond even the scope of the PHB one, that's perfectly fine. So nothing can shake my optimistic attitude, and I'm full of inspiring and cautionary tales from my military experience relevant to almost every combat situation. Your ideal is faith. I trust that my deity will guide my actions. I have faith that if I work hard, things will go well. And your flaw is once I pick a goal, I become obsessed with it to the detriment of everything else in my life. And you're missing a bond because you're not sure. When looking at what a bond is, let's go back and reference. Create one bond for your character. Bonds represent a character's connections to people, places, and events in the world. They tie you to things from your background. They might inspire you to heights of heroism or lead you to act against your own best interests if they're threatened. They can work very much like ideals, driving a character's motivations and goals. Bonds might answer any of these questions. Whom do you care about most? Most about. Why are they using a... They're using a preposition to end a sentence with. Haha, right? Joke, because it's... Anyway. To what place do you feel a special connection? What is your most treasured possession? Your bonds might be tied to your class, your background, your race, or some other aspect of your character's history or personality. You might also gain new bonds over the course of your adventures. With that as the cradle of the concept for a bond. Yes, Derek, I have one left. That is the last one that I have right now. In fact, I have 3 MM2s, 4 MM1s, and 1 Tyranny of Dragon. And I'm tapped out. And Jericho, ultimately, as we're looking at your character here and we're building it, right? Because remember, the NPCs that we're making, they have their own bonds as well, right? Something that someone, what is something, someplace, or someone that you really care about? Do you have a favorite mentor who got you involved in bounty hunting? Do you have a religious leader, if your character is a person of faith, someone who set you on this path? Is there a particular institution, maybe where you studied criminal justice or something else, where you learned your sword technique, and forever will you be grateful to an institution, if not to a mentor, for getting you to where you are, to where you're at? This is the kind of thing, this would be a bond that your character would have. And honestly, look, with everything that we do here in all of our practices, Jericho, any background can fit any character. You can make it fit, and you don't have to worry about it. In fact, honestly, this is why I love just subjecting myself to the randomness, because it takes so much indecision off the table. Because it gives you the blocks to play with, and then you just play with them. Yep, they come from very different lines. There's a lot of there's a lot of things here, and so Derek, Jericho is. I did have the idea that he wanted to be the best out of the group he's with. Well, so you could be bonded, if you go back to the soldier, because your guild faction background kind of lets you take other backgrounds as a buffet. If you go to bonds here, then one of these could very well work for you, Jericho. Right? I would still lay down my life for the people I served with. Someone saved my life on the battlefield. To this day, I will never leave a friend behind. My honor is my life. I'll never forget the crushing defeat my company suffered, or the enemies who dealt it. Those who fight beside me are worth dying for, or I fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The noble who thinks of it as their civic duty, the outlander who specializes in the wild, the soldier who can't leave the war, etc. Yep. My honor is my life. Then that's your bond. You are an honorable person then, and so your bond is to yourself, and you would be carrying yourself with what your code of honor is going to be bringing about. Yeah, exactly. In fact, Derek, that is let Derek hold your feet to the fire, Jericho. What's your honor? Because honor can be a lot of different things. What is your honor? Are you like Batman, where you'll break kneecaps and arms, and you'll beat people up and make them comatose, but you won't kill them? Is that your honor? Like, I'll do everything but kill? Is your honor, I actually try to bring people in order to rehabilitate them? Is your honor, I'm here to actually hunt the worst of the worst? And so my honor is to make sure that these people never can act or speak or do bad things again. And so actually you are you're a bounty hunter, and you either take up dead or alive, and you ignore that alive part, or there's different degrees here to what you would be doing. It's kind of like the cleric. My god is a good god, a virtuous god. It's a blasphemy to kill in their name. Little fuzzy about kneecaps, though. Yeah, or oh well, my book says I must defend myself. Okay, if you just declare, if you take one step further, I'll be forced to defend myself, and then a person takes a step forward despite them being 20 feet away, then apparently your faith or your belief of your understanding of the faith or something says you could just light them up with a fireball at that point. What does your honor say about an evil tyrant who has a legal bounty on a good man who's on the run? Hey. And although for context, Derek, Jericho is making a D&D time character, and I don't say that in a bad way, but his character, I mean, he'll get to experience in sort of these self-contained one-shots as well. Not that Jericho, you can't have a fully developed, thoughtful character. Just remember that you're building a character to fit the model of the type of game that you're going to be going into as well. They'll only take on contracts to that is the worst of life and can and will kill them, kind of like a Punisher type of guy. Well, I mean, carry that in then, and remember, when Pete or Jeremy, whoever's going to run your adventure, they're going to sit you down and ask you in character. They're going to ask you in character, so who are you and what are you doing, and get into your character. Speak as your character would, right? If you want to use an accent, or you could use a voice modulator, you can do a lot of things, but make sure, Jericho, that you're practicing using I, me, my thoughts, I would, and go from there. So you are getting into this bounty hunter. Because as Bartholomew or one of his agents, they're going to pull you aside, and they're going to say, this is what's going on, and this is a job that I need done. And, there may not always be a criminal to hunt in one of these adventures. So in some way, you will have to be open for taking on odd jobs on the side, or maybe this leads to something bigger. Maybe by investigating by investigating whatever is happening, it could put you on the lead to something bigger. So make sure that when you're considering your character, and this isn't just for D&D time either. This is, if you're going to sit down, get into your character's head. Just as if you're a DM, get into your NPC's head, right? Even if you don't have an accent or something. Whoa, hey. After you all get out of ad limbo, I'll wave hi again to you. I've threatened the whole of Gnome civilization looking for a thief, so I can understand that. Hey, Barbarian, there we go. We're getting people out of ad limbo here. So welcome, Barbarian, and thank you very much, Journeyman, if you've slogged your way through the ads to be here. For you and everyone who came over with you. Well, hey, we got started. We're helping the Face of Jericho here with his first character. And he has some questions on personality and expressing it, and we're helping him with his bond for his character. And so welcome to all of you. Did you have a good stream, or it seems a little early for you? Are you doing okay? Not that I mind. In fact, I'm very appreciative that you all are here. As we continue our workshop, right? We want to flesh out our world. We made our 5 characters. We made our setting. And now let's make it a little bit richer. Just, early, just finished the painting? Gotcha, my man. You've earned it, sir. So, for anyone who came over with J-Man, get a drink, get a snack, and sit back. I mean, this is a relaxed workshop. You don't have to know a ton about D&D as we go through the narrative process. It's interactive storytelling. If you have an idea for a character we're making, throw it out there. It's perfectly fine. We're not threading needles here with rules, and I'm not gonna, we're not getting into complex. If you haven't played D&D for 20 years, what are you doing? Get out of here, Scrub Lord. Hey, Diadems, welcome. Oh, Derek, Journeyman is here to relax, and you might be getting him riled up. Be very careful, Derek. Hey, exactly. I would agree with that, J-Man. Oh, by the way, Journey, I don't know if Derek, come on. You're good. Um, I got to use the advice that I picked up from you a couple times already. Yeah, I was in a stream. I was in one of your streams a while back, and you're talking about giving feedback on others' art, or rather, if you're an artist and you're seeking feedback, don't just plop something down in front of someone and say, "How does this look?" Because I don't know. What do you want me to look for? And one of the examples is it looks like a bunch of dots. Is that good? That's what I see, a bunch of dots. It doesn't look like the Mona Lisa. It doesn't look like some new abstract art. And you're like, oh, it does. Well, but that was the point. Oh well, I wish I knew that. You hit it. It's a bunch of dots. It's pointillism. You're absolutely. I go from being obscure and going, it's art, to hell yeah, it's art, and I think you hit exactly what you're going for. So I appreciate your ranting because even novices like me get to pick up on things that maybe these are things that we've always felt, or maybe we've abided by, but we've never really quantified it, and so I appreciate that. Jericho says he'll take on. So hey, if as much as I'm a workshop type of person, uh, J-Man, you're a workshop to folks like me. I may not be steeped in art, at least not in the production side of it, but learning about the production side really helps me feel rounded out. Hey, Roxy, welcome. He'll take on the worst offenders, so in the case of the noble with a legal bounty on a good man, he wouldn't take it as it would go against his code, but he'd also have to take into consideration how he would need to do in order to survive. Well, I mean, having that much context, Jericho, is a convenience, especially for someone who wants to work as a lawman, whether official or as like a bounty hunter. That's not you're not a policeman as a bounty hunter, unless there's a different type of rule apart from what we know in the United States and even the parts of the U.S. that allow bounty hunting. Um, so it's actually I wonder here. Um, he is not currently broadcasting, but if you watch Stephen FRA, STEPHEN FRA, for Federal Recovery Agent, he is a bounty hunter in the Kansas City, Missouri area, and he takes you on his bounty hunts with his partner. And they'll talk about bounty hunting. You can see him make their arrests because he has a GoPro, and you can learn a lot about bounty hunting by watching his stream. And I would highly recommend. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Give that man a watch. You want to learn what it's like to be a bounty hunter? Be a bounty hunter by proxy by watching him. He also does firearm streams and a lot of this other side stuff that, could be interest or practice in order to help him be a bounty hunter. Yes, Zuler Pie. We were developing her last night, and so you're seeing the initial notes for her on screen right now. Horror dark art, Derek, is very open to individual interpretation, so it's a good thing to try and submit. You might be shocked at how it goes. If not, you make new stuff for next year. I Not that I have a horse in that race, but I agree with you, J-Man, especially as someone who's worked conventions before. Um, you know, not my own stuff, but in working at conventions and seeing presentations and seeing how the process goes, and especially the ability to network. Oh, lordy, the ability to network. I've seen bounty hunts. They're not police officers. They're people hired to track others down. Yes. To track them down and, you know, to bring them back because they didn't show up for their court date, and the bondsman doesn't want to lose the money that was paid, you know, on behalf to get this person out of jail, to pay the bail bond. And so the bondsman will offer a cash reward to bounty hunters to, let's say, 10%. So someone skips out on going to court and has paid a $5,000 bond. Then instead of losing the $5,000 ultimately because this person leaves, the bonding agency will tell a bounty hunter, hey, if you capture this person, I'll give you 10%. And so you'll get $500, because it's better to, you know, it's better to get $4,500 back than to lose $5,000, kind of a thing. You meet some other horror artists and you feed off each other's energy. Not only is that practical, that is in itself quite horrific to think about in a metaphorical sense. Just a bunch of artists, like all, like, you know, tendrils and mouths on ends of stalks and whatever, just sort of like feeding off each other's energies and auras. And so far my paladin creation is going well. Well, Roxy, again, if you ever need help with that, make sure you let us know here. I potentially might rework his honor myself to potentially fit in better with the style of D&D time. Bear that in mind. And by no means is that a slam against Pete and Jeremy. It's the format of their show. Hey, JT, it's the format of their show that they run characters through these, you know, 1.25 hour adventures. And your character develops over time. Your character will level up. And there are many characters in the D&D time roster that have been playing for some time, and you get to know them and they have a personality. Just make sure that you're making a character not for D&D as in anything that can exist under that umbrella, but that you're going to make a character that will fit into the setting. And because I could even say, and this is even apart from Pete and Jeremy, if I told you, Jericho, look, I need some players, I want to run a campaign, we're going to be playing D&D 5th edition. You're like, got it. I want to play this bounty hunter, and we're going to do, all of this stuff. And suddenly I go back and I tell you, I forgot. So the campaign format is everyone is a bard and you're going to be a band. Oh, yeah, it's still 5th edition. Don't worry about it. It's still 5th edition. Oh, but I made a paladin. Oh, well, sorry. I should have told you that we're going to be playing, that we're going to be playing as everyone is a band, so you can be a bard of some kind. You can even go outside the PHB if you want. And so you have to make sure that you are aware of the type of game or situation that you're getting into. Because you might even make a paladin. We might even negotiate back and forth with each other. Oh my. Look at that notification.
Schutzzettel Ass. Von Box auf M2, Need Me Dead Black Dagon, and Tyranny.
Sir. Well, don't think that you can't. Oh, Roxy, thank you. Don't think that you can't have a serious character on D&D time. Not everything has to be silly slapstick. Just realize that you'll be presenting your character in sort of bite-sized bits, right? About an hour, at most an hour and a half at a time. Wait until after character creation? Okay. So Derek, then what I will do is, since you want these held aside, you wanted a Monster Manual, a Monster Menagerie 2, and the Tyranny of Dragons. So I'm going to hold these off to the side for you. and we'll go from there. That means that I have one last MM2 that's available, so we'll cycle this like that. Yeah, exactly. So I think your character, Jericho, I think your character can work inside of D&D time very well. You just need to make sure that when you're getting into character, this is this is something that is this is something to just take into consideration. Because heck, look, I've even done this to my players in the Tuesday game. When I told them all, hey, we're sticking with Vanilla Player's Handbook, no multi-classing, I'm sure that broke a couple hearts, if only even a little bit. But that's the format that I wanted to run, and so that changed up the style of the character. Serious characters can work. You just need to understand how to play to the absurdity. Yeah, like a vaudeville act, right? You need the goofy one, and you need the straight man, and you need the goofy man, in order to work it out. Like a Abbott and Costello, a Laurel and Hardy kind of a thing. In fact, there's a I forget the name of it. There's even a style of Japanese comedy that is that kind of a specific setup as well. I think here we do call it vaudeville. Go to eat food and try to get some sleep early. Have a good stream. Be safe, everyone. See you all next week. J-Man, keep on keeping on, brother. Thank you very much for the art you produce, the conversations you have, and for your time and attention here. I'm always honored to be in your circle of consideration as a friend, as another content provider here on Twitch as well. Oh, Penn and Teller, excellent. And you know what? Interestingly enough, I would argue in that sense, Penn and Teller are both playing the no nonsense, like the straight man, right? But they're doing it in different ways. Roxy says, I still need a name for my Silver Dragonborn Paladin and her background, a soldier. Well, if you, there are name suggestions if you wanted to go by what the culture is available here. Right? If we come down to Dragonborns, it does give you some interesting suggestions. Hey, Dark Wolf, welcome. Otherwise, you can be imaginative. You could say, well, look, to be able to speak Draconic, humanoids don't even have the mouth parts necessary to make some of the noises. You need a particular tongue and a muzzle or something to be able to do so. And so in the common tongue, people might just call you Silverbell, or Shiny or something like that, right? Argentum, AG, silver, right? Argentum. So it's up to you, because remember, a name is an extension of the culture in which you are developing this character. And to bring it back to the NPCs that are up here, so we have these NPCs that we made, and we never gave them names. But think about this, right? The name of the Madame of the Frowning Star, her name is going to show the culture or the priorities, name and title, by the way, of those people. And so if remember, we developed the region, it has elves and humans as the primary residents here. But let's say that she has, I don't know, she has a Draconic last name. So she was born here, but she's just from a family that's outside, or she chose to keep it, and everyone else got rid of their names to conform. So by that virtue, or by that aspect of that character, she is showing herself to be this no nonsense type of person, because she is keeping her Draconic last name. Consarn it. Dag nabbit. Boy howdy. Oh, is Boy Howdy Yeehaw here? Maybe not. No, I don't see her. Silver Dragon. Oh yeah, you could name her Cloudy, right? There's a silver lining to every cloud. By the way, you can use puns, colloquial phrasings, all this stuff for inspiration. Derek says, Roxy, I have a black dragonborn paladin who I know would take exception to your character. She's adorbs and is hilariously trying to be taken seriously as a BBEG, when in reality she's an anti-hero gnat trying to take on a mountain. Diadems, hey, keep it clean. Ah, I'm sorry, Diadems, I'm just a real son of a gun. Ah, shoot! I did it again. Dadgummit. Oh, gosh. Jericho says, maybe instead of going for the killing route, I can go for the rehabilitation route. He wants to try and give everyone a chance to become a better person. He views his job as a way to put bread on the table and help people, giving a more paladin-esque vibe to a rogue. Hey! I think that can work very well, Jericho, and that might even be a little bit more in line with the tone of the games in which that character will exist. Because it's not just the games, right? You have to get into the game, get into your character. If your character lives in the world of D&D time, the world of D&D time is more along the lines of, and I say this with due respect, it's like a kind of a Saturday morning cartoon. Not that there can't be violence or death or other things that happen, but it's presented as like this colorful, rather optimistic world in which people live. And or like Adventure Time. How about that? So we have D&D, so Adventure Time, very colorful. There is, concepts of death or some, adult themes that can run through it. But it's not meant to be a platform for being the grizzled detective who would rather just shoot someone to put them down, aside from trying to, rehabilitate them or something along those lines. Hey, speaking of, here we go. So, Mr. Flumph. Jericho came and he was asking about his character. He seems very excited to run in your world, and so we're going over it, and we're going over. All right, so how are you going to make this character to run in the context, in the meta context, and in the world of D&D time? And so hopefully we're giving him some very solid advice in doing so. It's a bright coat of paint on a really terrible world sometimes. Oh, jeez. Hey, Babacus. Hey, I said like it's like a Saturday morning cartoon or sort of like Adventure Time, where you can have adult context or you can have, injury or death, but it is more of an optimistic take on role-playing that's, into more bite-sized adventures. And so Flumph, we're talking about with Jericho here, you can have a grizzled detective, who's just like, yeah, whatever, you're a wild animal. Pfft, make sure you double tap to put down the criminal. Meanwhile, he was wanted for, like, petty theft. But that may not, that could be jarring, or that could exist outside the context of the game or the game world. Just like I was saying, in a broad D&D sense, because I'm not picking on you two over there. I said we could just run a D&D game, and he's like, yeah, I'll make this paladin. I got all this other stuff, 5th edition. And I say, well, everyone in the party should be a bard because we're gonna run a band. And by the way, if I didn't mention this, we did that in this channel in one of our weeks a while ago. We made to show off that you can have 5 completely different characters who can all be the same class, and you have unique personalities. We made a band called the Healing Words. You can find that on our YouTube, by the way. But we made a band called the Healing Words, and they were all unique. They were wonderful individuals, and it really worked out. But if I neglected to say something like that was context, because it's still 5th edition D&D, then that's what I said. Oh, well, now I have to rework my character, or, if I said, well, we're going to run this as kind of a, instead of, oh, shoot, what's the manga, it's out of Detroit, is it like Detroit City Rock or something like that? It's a manga that involves a sort of like a death metal band out of Detroit. You know, and so you have that, or are we running Gem and the Holograms? Context is important. You guys have helped me work through the indecisiveness. Adventure Time is actually a post-apocalyptic reality after a big war. All barbarians in a stock investing firm. Well, so, but again, you're seeing there's context to the world in different ways. You should do another solo class party. We could do a thematic one, maybe in December. We can do something, if they're not all a solo class, maybe they're all a bunch of gnomes making presents for kids or something. Is one crit present? Hey, bro, player. I do not see him. No, I don't see him here. If you need to talk to him, you can try tagging him in the Discord. All barbarians in a... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were referencing something else. I'm willing to like when we get to we'll cross that bridge. I don't want to lock anything in and then completely forget about it. And you're like, but Matt, you told me. We'll get to it. I'll make an announcement. But yeah, you can come up with ideas like that. Oh, hey, barbarian. Oh, was I mentioned? So yeah, I hope that kind of as a parallel to what we've been doing when we made this Madame, and also when we made, because we got on a really good conversation about people who have been released from prison, about homeless people or otherwise, you know, beggars or drifters. And in fact, on the heels of that conversation, it was a very meaningful one last night. We then made a character. An NPC that our PCs could encounter in this Arctic swamp area that we have developed, and in so doing, we can extract even more information from the NPCs. So, for example, this person actually seems to be a bit of a mysterious drifter. He has a powerful enemy, and could that be related to these prophecies, to this group that goes around ransacking? Could be. Could be a villain. If he's not the villain, then it could be the villain of the campaign that we're going to develop. All druids in a steampunk Victorian setting. I think druids could actually work very well in a steampunk setting. Well, I mean, Jim, maybe you do work in an investing firm, and so you're a barbarian that is a stock investor too. And so now let's take a look. Let's take a look at another NPC that we can develop for this region. Whether or not the characters actually meet this person, if you recall, when we go back here, we're talking about that a cabal seized power openly, and it might have been these dwarves who are actually facilitating the trade among the several city-states that are making this confederacy. So why don't we generate the leader of this confederacy? Because they may never meet him, because he might just be inaccessible. Especially if they're rolling into town, I don't know, they're 5th level. Well, what's a poo kicker adventurer at level 5 gonna be talking about? You know, just gonna roll into a place and demand to see the leader? But by having some of these higher up NPCs who may never be met, or at least met later on, you can express, well, what do people know about this character? What do these people, what do the citizens think of this leader? Whether they're human, elf, or it's a fellow dwarf that's existing in this kind of central, this neutral central confederacy area that is servicing or keeping check on the several city states. And so I think that he would be an excellent NPC. And again, they're just falling out of our storytelling. They're just occurring. We don't have to really bend our brains all that much to say, oh, what's a compelling character? And by the way, here's a hint. All of this can help you if you're participating in NaNoWriMo or you're seeking inspiration elsewhere. Just let it happen. So, class, if you have your DMGs, why don't we open back up to Chapter 4 in Designing NPCs? Jericho says, it'd be kind of funny. Gruck walks in with a great axe into Wells Fargo. I'm here to apply for a job. My qualifications are bashing people and chopping wood. You're hired. You'll be slicing the paper we print out on receipts. Go up to floor 5. And you know what? Those are things to consider if you ever want to run a modern or a futuristic campaign world. What would be the role of a barbarian in a service economy? Diadems, come on now. You know you always have to have your books for class. Except Tuesday. Tuesday is like the assembly day, right? You get to go to the gym and you get to watch the kids go through the school play. But the other days, it's not a gym day or a presentation day. Hey, Civil Hermit. I like that. Yep, you got the ruler out and everything. That's a very cute emote also. So let's develop the leader of this confederacy, this dwarf. And again, see, you'll notice down here, or with what is prompted in the DMG, this doesn't have anything about the ability scores, the skills that this NPC has, how many hit points he or she has, or even the race and subrace. Now, we can always tack it on, but we're looking for personalities. We're looking for... That was a really loud car going down the street. I don't know if you all heard that. We're looking for points. Kind of like a connect the dots, right? We want to make an outline of our NPC, and then we'll let the story and the characters color and fill in the NPC as it is interacted with and as it interacts with others. Oh, an assembly day. There we go, Dark Wolf. It's an assembly day. That's what Tuesdays are. And so, we could go through and even do some of the character creation here. Do we want to roll, hill or mountain dwarf? Or we even said, is this a Duragar? Is this a Duragar? And it very well could be. Male or female, we could flip a coin, we could do all sorts of things. But let's look at what the prompts are in the DMG, because then we can sprinkle in the other details here. All right, in one sentence, describe the NPC's occupation and provide a brief historical note that hints at the character's past. So it is, let's see. It is Vicade's job. I just took a part of Diadem's and Civil Hermit's names, which is also a good naming convention, Roxy, if you're out there. Look at the stuff around you. And, whether their names in chat or, if you take a look at, here's a good example. You're like, oh, I'm really stuck. I need to generate an NPC name or a PC name or something. Take what's around you. and you're like, oh, this NPC's name is One of Four. One of Four. Oh, that's kind of cool. It sounds like a fantasy name. What was the inspiration? I mean, more in particular that. Maybe your character's name is Nabyar. Nabyar? Oh, okay. Sounds like a fantasy name. That works. I mean, who's going to question Nabyar? Maybe even people say, oh, Nabyar, that sounds really cool. Where did you get Nabyar? Nabyar. Reminiscence, not wanting to hijack your stream by any means, but could you mind if I ask a question? Yeah, you are welcome to. It says in the title, you're not hijacking the stream. New players or questions are welcome here. This is a workshop stream. Reminiscence. Daily, hello all. Ravnik and Mad Mage are live in D&D Beyond. I don't know where to start. Yeah, playing a human, McDonald is an easy last name. Yeah, so we did get Mad Mage stuff in daily, but I don't have my Ravnica stuff. But yeah, Reminiscence, go ahead and ask your question if you'd like. So it's Vicade's job to facilitate the confederacy between the several city-states of the Arctic swamp. That's the... Remember, keep it brief. One sentence. And then his history. He was one of the first dwarves to come up from the ruins beneath the Stilt cities. He led the seizure of power and established the overarching command and trade rules between the elves and humans. He and his people take a cut of the trade for their knowledge and services. Arcana Type, thank you very much for that follow. Reminiscence, I'm a returning player to D&D, and my DM is allowing us to have racial feats at level 1 for a bonus. Stuck between Sharpshooter with Variant Human or Wood Elf for Elven Accuracy. What input might you offer? +2 dex from Elf and +1 from Elven Accuracy would net me a 20 dex. While a Variant Human would give me Sharpshooter and an 18 dex with the Determined Human racial feat. Most players seem to be optimizing due to the nature of the game we're playing, and that's good context. Because by default, I'm not a min-maxer. I don't build characters to try and maximize damage or DPR, damage per round, or to maximize to hit. So if that is the context of your game, and thank you for even if you just popped in here, Reminiscence, you're going back and confirming a point that we made prior. If you're super if your DM is running a game where you, in order to do basic survival, you have to min-max, it might take choices off your table then. You go elf and you just max it out. I would say though, don't be afraid of doing things to try and establish yourself getting advantage, as statistically that's a +5 to your attacks if you can help it. That might take a little role play, or it might take some creative interaction with the stage or the arena in which you're fighting. Yeah, Ravnica is going to be the problem, and so I might have to I might have to run sort of a manufactured one-shot on Saturday myself. And hey, you know what? We actually made a Ravnica campaign on the stream a month or two ago. Probably 2 months ago. Roxy, you're very welcome. If you need any more tips, you know where to hop by. Yeah, I understand, Dark Wolf. Looking to play a Ranger Sniper, Overwatch kind of character, Rogue Assassin, Ranger Gloomstalker. Tomb of Annihilation is brutal. That it very much can be Reminiscence. I'll tell you without spoiling anything for you because I don't want to spoil the story. If you are a clever player, and I don't mean you have to, you don't have to read a ton of survival books or watch a bunch of survival YouTube videos, but that won't hurt to do. Unless your DM is like purposely running a hard mode Tomb of Annihilation, it's not necessarily harder. There's just a lot more opportunities to fall into traps. And I just don't mean like dungeon traps. I just mean the mentality of just because there's a snake that's approaching us means that we have to fight the snake. You can run away from the snake, or you can set the ground on fire and run away as it's distracted, or it's otherwise play to the nature of the enemies that you're facing. Daly says, guys, I figured it out. I am Hallister Blackcloak. See example below. Hallister doesn't make it easy for creatures to enter or leave his dungeon. No spell other than Wish can be used to enter Undermountain, leave it, or transport oneself from one level to another. Astral Projection, Teleport, Plane Shift, Word of Recall, and similar spells cast for these persons simply fail, as do effects that banish a creature to another plane of existence. Flump says, as a general rule in 5e, damage is considerably more valuable than accuracy, so Sharpshooter is usually stronger. And you know what? I thank you for tips like that, Flump, because as a DM, I'm not used to running like brutal, like min-max, DPR style events or characters. Civil Sharpshooter is probably the more powerful choice. Accuracy does get better with abilities like Sneak Attack, though. Daly says, Many Morgs, you can use the D&D Beyond campaign I made for your channel and use my Ravnica book for Saturday. Oh, thank you. I'll have to play around with that and see what if I can get that mobile or not. All right, DDMs. 3 of my pre-orders come out next week. I'm only picking up Spyro until I get more gold. Dark Wolf needs gold badly. Reminiscence, I hope that in some way I was able to give you at least a start. But if you need to refine your situation or your question more, please do so. You're welcome to hang out here. All of you are sitting down at a table in a game store, and we're having a conversation together. Oh, well, thank you, Reminiscence. And you know what? And I appreciate you taking the gumption to pop into a channel and to open up to us about this concern. Because there's a lot of us that have a lot of different experiences with not just D&D, or not even just 5th edition D&D, but older editions and other styles of role-playing. So if we can help you, we certainly... Exactly! Oh, thank you! Reminiscence, you are correct. You don't learn anything if you don't ask. Exactly. Correctamundo. And so, if you do have other questions, you are always welcome to pop in and ask them. Let's bring this up. Here we go. Our NPC's appearance. And by the way, I'm not just doing this to be like, okay, we're done talking. As we can talk and have this conversation as we're going through the workshop as well. Let's see, number 15. Unusual hair color. Alright, so if he's a Duragar, I mean, mostly what? Unfortunately, dwarves seem to suffer from dwarf pattern baldness here. And Duragar are primarily, like with Drow, white or gray hair, or silvery hair. So if he has an unusual hair color, what if he, what if his people maybe haven't fully turned into Duragar, but they've been living below underground? That they are, they're not Duragar in the sense that they've been modified by mind flayers, if you want to go with that lore, that history to like kind of bread and butter D&D standard explanations in history. But if he has an unusual hair color, maybe some of the chemicals in the swamp are actually giving them, bright orange hair or bright green hair. How about that? Sort of like a gray dwarf with green hair. That could be very interesting. His abilities, and again, for an NPC, you don't necessarily have to make a complete character sheet for them. But if you have a gist of who they are and what they do and how and why they do it, you're set. So let's roll. High ability is dexterity. Low ability is intelligence. This could guide if you want to apply a class, then maybe he could be a charismatic rogue. Or he could be actually with a high dex, he could be a lot of things. He could still be a barbarian, a monk. He could be almost anything. He could be anything he sets his mind to. And I be back, needed food. Welcome back, Derek. Got some algae bloom on his head there. Oh yeah, like a little seaweed toupee or something. So far I have my paladin leveled up to 3 from 1. Are you comfortable with the level up process, Roxy? Okay, now this NPC has a particular a talent. This is something that stands out. Something, right? Our mistress or our madame of the Frowning Star here has a she's an expert cook. And that's actually what she's known for, perhaps besides her obvious occupation. Our vagrant can paint beautifully. Now the PCs may never see this NPC paint, but people might know that he can paint, and it's something they learn along the ways, along the way of the story of the campaign progressing, and it's now a more rounded character. So the talent that that the ruler of this confederacy has is 5. Great with animals. Yes, it was randomly rolled, Flumph. And part of the lore was while this place was first being established, there was a shooting star that was sort of like seen in the skies above, and it just sort of made this like frowning this frowning face. I think that was one of the origins we're talking about, because we randomly rolled it, and you know what? Dag nabbit, we're gonna stick to it. So why is the most famous tavern in this region called the Frowning Star? And it is also it happens to be a brothel, or in this case a central place for escorts, because escorts aren't just an adult industry term. They will actually, because of the people who work there, they have kind of like an enzyme that will give you a natural, it'll give you a natural antifreeze. And so they'll help escort you from city-state to city-state and keep you alive and warm in doing so. You watch some YouTube videos on leveling D&D characters? Well, Roxy, if you need live help, you know where to go. His mannerisms. And by the way, all of these also prompt you to describe something in a sentence, right? Just saying great with animals, you're like, okay, well, maybe I can work with that, or you just treat it like a bullet point. Why? What? You could even say, all right, so great with animals. And then you continue the sentence. He has... he has 6 mastiffs with him at all times. and have named them all after flowers. Do you see what one sentence has now just created and sent ripples across this NPC? In fact, we've even arguably created more NPCs, although there are stat blocks for Mastiffs in other books. Oh, you decided to roll dice for the starting stats. Okay. His mannerisms. What will the players remember in an interaction should they be able to meet with this NPC? 10. Uses colorful oaths and what I've been doing, right? Yosemite Sam, like a Yosemite Sam style Duragar, except he's gray with green hair. Uses colorful oaths, or like a foghorn leghorn. How about that? And exclamations. So he probably says stuff that people who don't understand Dwarven are still like, did he just call us, and everyone's just sort of like, mm-hmm. His interaction, how does he interact with others? Let's roll a d12. 1. Argumentative. Now, argumentative doesn't mean he's evil. It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It shows that he comes across with a forceful personality, and perhaps if that's how he interacts with others, he has to do that because he feels that that is how a leader shows strength. You know, even if it's something that he might already be open-minded to adopt, he may still throw it out there to challenge someone and say, you know what? Tell me why should I stamp approval on this? And you can't just tell me because, sir, you wanted this. You know, he says, I want a reason. I want a reason. Tell me. And so, you know, when the city-states get together, and if he's presiding over them, let's say, he will always be there to stir the pot, because maybe he wants to always have people thinking, right? This is survival. You know, you can't be weak. And in that case, you know what? That's gonna... One of the PCs that we generated last week, the drow of all the characters, right, will absolutely glomp onto this philosophy. And now, while the other PCs may or may not dislike this ruler, one of them can at least be an ambassador to go talk to the leader of this confederacy that we made. Victor says, hey, Maddie, I'm still experiencing new aspects of RPing. I've never been to an RP wedding. Now I can take that off my bucket list. Hey, well, congrats on that. I'm glad you're expanding your horizons and you're getting to learn new stuff. And I hope, Victor, that you had a ton of fun. Argumentative is good, isn't it? Or tell me why not. Oh, wow. So that's a very, very above average character, Roxy. RP weddings, the finest of role-playing. Now, useful knowledge. Again, what's a blurb? What might this character know? And even if you as the DM aren't exactly sure, you know, be mindful of your PCs. Your PCs will tell you through what they do in your game and your world what interests them. And you can use that to either accommodate or to help guide content in your story. So in this case, if we want to put the history of the territory, you can. That would be useful knowledge, especially if he was a founding father of it, right? And so you can have something that is as broad, right? So he's kind of a catch-all for the history of the area. History of the area, including the prehistory of elf-human occupation. Then you can say something like, specifically, he can also give you knowledge about other economic forces and notable personalities in the Confederacy. right? He's the leader. He knows people. Now, does that mean that he is going to even offer you a chance to see him, let alone divulge a bunch of information? You better go to him as either a higher level, in some quantifiable fashion, or you catch his attention some way or something. Okay, keep in mind that your NPCs, while they may not be fully developed player characters, still have thoughts and feelings, right? They have ideals, bonds, and flaws. And you can do the whole background on them. This isn't really asking, well, was he a soldier or whatever? We can take that step and do it that way. Or if you want to stick with this broader NPC consideration, sure, let's roll 2d6. His ideals: good, evil, lawful, chaotic, neutral, or other. And by the way, you can have a lawful, good character that has an evil ideal. It doesn't have to conform. Because remember, your alignment is is how you express yourself. You can be a chaotic evil character and have good thoughts. You don't just have to murder people. You don't just have to set places on fire. You can donate to a charity and be chaotic evil. It's fine. 4, so this is a chaotic ideal of number 2, creativity. So it seems that he's not just a tyrant, or he's just not occupying a bully pulpit. Maybe he is using this opportunity to be creative. And so we keep talking about this place that's built as a stilt city on top of this swamp that's existing in the middle of this bitterly cold Arctic region. Whether it's natural or supernatural because of a white dragon, we'll see. But what if in this case, right, if we have dwarves or even Duragar who have taken over, instead of stilts, what if he's making this place, he's replacing the stilts with stone columns? But if they're not just stone columns, we're talking, think like, we talked about dwarf pattern baldness, right? Or maybe it's a movement, heck, maybe this is what is causing him to not exactly be welcome underground, even if he's not.
So maybe one last Klegolem after all.
Oh, Flumph. Terster Flurmph. I will hold this aside for you, sir, then. Derek has an MM2 to pop and my last Tyranny of Dragons. And that means that I only have one more of these left, as I plundered my store before coming home. Shh. Don't tell my store. And so what if he's replacing the stilts with stone columns where bald is beautiful? And by that I mean, think like Art Deco style statues. Think of the Tim Burton style Gotham City. Where the observatory is held atop, a titan. Like a very chiseled, smooth titan holding the observatory up. And, buildings have these strong figures, that are either feminine or masculine. And so this is his creativity. He doesn't want this to be some podunk swamp village on top of dwarven ruins. He wants to build this up, its strength, its polish, yeah. And so now we have this kind of, this Gothic Art Deco fusion style architecture under his care and development. Victor says, by the way, I never realized how alignments work. They can work in several different ways, and the best thing to talk about alignments, I mean, we could do so here generally, but always talk to your DM about that, Victor. Sure your boss won't get mad at you that you're stealing his merch to sell? Yeah, I mean, they haven't caught me yet. Oh, gosh. His bond is number 10. And, not number 10, a D10. Number 4. Loyal to a benefactor, patron, or employer. Oh my gosh, is this not an awesome leader that we're randomly generating? Does this not work? Yes! RNG, flow through us. We accept you as members of S.H.I.E.L.D. And you know what this has done? You know what this has done? It's created either another NPC or a villain. Guess what we're going to be generating in the next segment? Wink, wink. Now, a flaw or a secret. Let's roll the D12. Number 2. He enjoys decadent pleasures. And it just so happens that we have a brothel in town. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be carnal pleasures of the flesh. Decadence is, it could be the hedonism bot from Futurama. He enjoys eating grapes all the time. Or he eats apples all the time, which will get him always a sin in cinema sins. He enjoys fine spirits. Hey, Neo Realms, thank you. I'll say that again too once you're out of ad purgatory. Decadent, and in fact, his art can even be decadent for him. What if he patrols? He goes past all the statues that he has had commissioned, and he just he takes pleasure in them. Hey, Neo, there you are. I'm a nacho glutton. Neo Realms. When I come back from our break, I'm going to have tortilla chips and some queso blanco. Ever heard of Humblewood by deckofmany.com? You can play as a bird. I have not, Victor. Dark Wolf, don't let him know that or it'll go to his head. Roxy says, I can't wait for my 2 boxes of Demons of Rage. I'll let you know. Yeah, please. When you pop them open, Roxy, take a picture of your haul. Yes, the Madame is a great cook. Maybe he's a gourmand. Exactly, Zuler Pie. And you see how we're networking our NPCs together? You would imagine that the leader of this would know someone like the Madame of the Frowning Star. And you know what? He may not know the Vagrant. The Vagrant probably knows everyone else, though, right? Useful knowledge, a lot about what's going on. But we can still draw this web of connectivity. In fact, Derek does a very good job of this. If you've ever seen him when he streams and he does this, he makes those squish spider diagrams, right? You get the circle that has a name in it, and then you put the legs out, and then they have circles, and then you have more legs coming out of the circles. So it looks like you just like squished a spider or a family of spiders together. That's an excellent way that you can connect your NPCs. And even you could draw your PCs into it as well. You can get lost in that web, mind you, if we're going to talk about spiders. You can get lost in that web. So don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. But you as the DM should just have an idea for what's happening. Roxy, who doesn't love great food? And you know what? Food is also a great cultural indicator as a DM. Kind of like what Derek brought up. I want to drop the corpse of a carrion crawler on his table and say, cook us a feast worthy of a king. And you know what? If that happens, what does that speak of the culture? Of the offerer, of the receiver, of everyone who lives in the area? Because it talks about the ecosystem, the ecology, even the economy. Food is an awesome, easy indicator of a ton of other things that are going on in your world that you don't have to explicitly say as a DM. But for instance, if I say that you are served a kind of a jambalaya, if you know what a jambalaya is, you are presuming that this swamp can make a kind of rice, and that they have some kind of a sausage that they make out of some local animal, some source of protein. Hopefully they have okra. Ooh, okra is good stuff. Hey Shlomo, good morning to you. Zuller Pie, a spider squish diagram. I love the technical accuracy here. We got to keep it simple, Zuller Pie. Good job. Now I'm hungry. Well, you know, Shlomo, I hope you guys have okra over in your part of the world. If not, I think I found a niche for you. Remember, cannibalism as a norm can be very fun to use. Makes for good funeral rites as well. And you know what? You could present that with a straight face. It doesn't mean that they're, evil. They hunt people and kill them. Oh, they would perish the thought, and no pun intended. Perish the thought. What are we, savages? We only eat people that we love and that have passed away already. Because that's respectful. We gain their strength. Duh. All right. We made a third NPC. I love this NPC too, by the way. I love thinking about this Duragar with green hair walking along the boardwalks of the swamp and just admiring this, like... So if you're not familiar with, like, Art Deco style, if you've ever played Bioshock 1 or 2, and not the third one that... Not the third one. 1 and 2. The ones that count. That is Art Deco. And I just love imagining that here you have this dwarf who's come up from the ruins. He's not taken control of the city-states, but he says, I'm going to manage all this for you. Otherwise, we're just going to drown you or something. And he's building these, like these colossal, these titans holding aloft these boardwalks and these businesses and in these cities as it's built up out of the swamp, almost in this, like, the show of strength and defiance towards nature itself. Yeah, we gain their strength. Grandpa would kill me if I let any animal go to waste. What would he do if I let him go to waste? See? Oh, okay, good. You do have Voker over there, Shlomo. Victor says, one of the characters I had sold stuff needed by non-rich people to rich people and killed other sellers. He said, I'm just building the economy. If that is legal in this very, in more of like a very pure, opportunistic, like an opportunistic pure capitalistic society, hey, if that's the rules people abide by, I hope everyone carries a dagger. Oh, Shlomo's eating a persimmon. A persimmon or a person. Oh. This is why I appreciate you all.